This will not be a season where we try things to see what people think. No drift. This is not the year of experimentation. This is not the year of try and let's see. This is not the year on I'm gonna do it on a whim. This is the year, if I don't got a word for God, no drift. It's 2021, this is a prophetic word, is the year of the anti-drift. 2021 is the year that we are anchored, but there's a reason, because we cannot drift. That word anti means no. Everybody shout at me, no. Come on, you've been saying it to your husband and your wife all week. Say it like you mean it. Say no. Okay? And drift means to be carried away slowly. God spoke to us, no being carried away slowly. No anti-drift. What the enemy would love to do to you and your family is that by the end of 2021, you have slowly drifted away from the things of God. What he would love to happen is for you and your business to go away from integrous business practices because you don't have the same business you used to have and the trajectory doesn't look the same, that you would slowly drift. And God said, no drift. No talking to those people. That's not your wife. That's not your husband. Don't drift down there. Get off that website. Unfriend them. No drift. Don't even entertain that. No drift. Stop letting your kids go to those people's house. You see their attitude changing every time they come back from spending the night over their house and you just want a day off. I gave you those kids to raise them in, I gave you those kids to raise them in my ways. And every time you send them over there so you can have a wine break, they're drifting. This is the year of, everybody say no drift. Anti-drift. See what happens is it says it's carried away slowly. The picture in my mind is like a little boat. It starts going, and it says it's carried away from truth slowly. Carried away from integrity slowly. Carried away from, watch this one, purity slowly. Yeah, the drift, it's nothing abrupt, but what the enemy wants it to do is be so consistent and so intentionally undetectable that you're carried away from consistency slowly, carried away from serving slowly, carried away from being generous slowly. Everybody say slowly. Yeah. What I found out as I began to think about this, and God was saying, this is the year of no drift, Michael. Don't drift in the values of this church. Don't drift in the standards of this church. I've given you a bigger platform, but I've given you the same message. No drift. Don't drift. When I tell you to talk about it, you talk about it. You talked about it when there was 35 people coming, and I want you to talk to it when it's 35,000 people coming. No drift. Don't drift. Don't drift. The reason he's saying that is because if you do drift, you're being carried away from something, but being carried away from something always means you're being carried to something else. And the thing about the drift is you can begin to get carried away from truth, but then you start drifting into lies. Yeah, carried away from integrity, and you start drifting into deceit. Carried away from purity, and now you're drifting into perversion. When I went into the years and the muck of the mire of pornography and perversion, I didn't just wake up one day and say, I want to be addicted to pornography. It was a drift. It was going to Barnes and Nobles and seeing the section that had the, can I be real today? Okay, like it was going to Barnes and Nobles after school and going from the kids section to the sports section. And I love the ESPN magazines and I'm looking at the shoes and then I'm seeing some magazines with plastic on them, and I pull one up and it's a young lady with nothing on but covering, and it invites me in, and I put it back that time because I thought somebody was looking, but then I asked my mom and dad, could I go back to Barnes & Noble the next day? Because it didn't start in the perversion. My purity started to drift, and I went back, and then ESPN back in the day made huge magazines, and so I was curious and clever enough to take the magazine and put it inside of the ESPN magazine and go back to the kids section because I wanted to be in a surroundings that nobody would suspect my perversion. I just want to be real. And I would sit next to Dr. Seuss looking at double D's. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? It was sitting there, Sam I am, my God, have mercy on, like, anyway, I was sitting there, and what the enemy did for an entire year is take my purity on a slow drift. And I know this may not be your issue, but what issue do you have? Where you didn't just end up at insecurity. You didn't just end up at overeating. You didn't just end up at gossip. It was a drift. You drifted from how can I help you to what can I get from this. You used to be so generous. You used to want to help people. You used to want to be the one that didn't need any credit, and now you won't do it unless you know where your name falls on the real sheet. Wow. How did you get there? It was a drift. You went from being generous and drifting to being selfish. This is the big one. You even went from being humble, and now you've been carried away, and you're drifting into pride. The one thing that God says I can't even be a part of. Now, some of you didn't recognize it, but now you're getting it, is that my cameraman started drifting slowly away from me, and now on your screen, there is a view that is not desirable. You can't see the whole thing because my cameraman drifted. And now the problem is, he didn't just drift in position, now he's drifted in focus. And now what was clear to you has now become very blurry because somebody you don't even know drifted. What I'm saying to you right now is nothing's wrong with your screen. Something's wrong with the person who's operating the thing that helps you see. And you don't know them, and you don't know their name, and you didn't even know that they would affect you. But because they begin to drift off of center, drift off of focus, drift from humility into pride and can't take correction. The thing about it is the camera people in the back are telling him to do something else, but he's so prideful that he will not drift away from what he is doing right now to be able to correct something for somebody else. What if I tell you I have 45 more minutes of the message, but you had to watch it like this because somebody else drifted? This is what your life looks like. That it happens slowly, but it affects everybody. And God said that 2021 is the year of the anti-drift. Somebody shout at me, no drift. In your marriage, no drift. In your finances, no drift. I'm speaking this right now. In our church, no drift. This will not be a season where we try things to see what people think. No drift. This is not the year of experimentation. This is not the year of try and let's see. This is not the year on I'm going to do it on a whim. This is the year if I don't got a word for God, no drift. Why? It's because the myth of the drift, I'm going to give you the myth. The myth of the drift is that it happens suddenly, but it always happens slowly. Your drift in private affects others in public. Do you understand that when you drift in integrity, when nobody's there, it affects children that aren't even born to you yet? The drift, the little line you do on your taxes is going to pass down for 4 generations. And your last generation is going to end up in jail for tax fraud because you started claiming a dependent that just no longer lives in the house. It was little for you, but it becomes a lifestyle for them. The reason God's saying don't drift is because what's little for you becomes a lifestyle for them. It is the time for the church to stand up. and say it doesn't matter what culture says, it doesn't matter what society says, it doesn't matter what our family members say that aren't anchored in the Word. We have decided that the Word of God and Jesus Christ is our anchor. We are tied to it. Our soul is anchored, and we will not drift. I dare somebody who's making a decision right now that they're not going to drift in 2021 to yell at the top of their lungs, no drift. You're going to be able to walk to people that work with you and watch TC, and they're going to leave work early, and you're going to say, no drift. Hold on, let's bring it very practical. You've seen them leaving 30 minutes earlier. No, that's not integrity. They're paying us to be here for this entire hour. No drift. What happens when you have accountability? And that's why you have to be around people. But Paul was trying to give them the ability not to drift, but they didn't listen. Because drifting in position and focus affects everything. And I'm telling you right now, God told us at the beginning of 2021, don't drift. Stay anchored.
At TBN, our mission is to use every available means to reach as many individuals and families as possible with the life-changing gospel of Jesus Christ.
Thank you for helping make the gospel of grace go around the world.
Without you, we couldn't do it. God bless you.